officer for companies, it's not just managing systems, but stewarding how intelligence flows securely and responsible across the enterprise. The role is going to shift from running infrastructure to orchestrating human and machine collaboration at scale. We have to get in front of that. It's a data race. So all the things that you have is going to shift from on-prem to the cloud into data across all ecosystems. And now you're managing that fluidity in and out to drive value into your companies or your customers or your shareholders alike.
Welcome to Mindshift. I'm your host, Karan Mehta. Joining us today is Billy Spears, Chief Information Officer at Teradata, a global leader in cloud analytics and AI-driven platform. With annual revenues approaching $1.75 billion. Over nearly 4 years at Teradata, Billy has navigated a unique journey, transitioning from Chief Information Security Officer to Chief Information Officer. His career reflects a rare fusion of deep cybersecurity expertise and enterprise IT leadership, driving innovation while safeguarding complex global data operations. So let's dive into the insights from this remarkable evolution. Billy, welcome.
Thank you very much, Karam. It's first and foremost, thank you very much for having me on the show. I really appreciate you and your audience taking a few moments to dive into my career and talking about this amazing world of technology.
I love it. Love it. Absolutely. Billy was super excited for the conversation. So I have to start with a very sort of logical question. What inspired your transition from CISO to CIO, and how has your security background shaped your approach to IT leadership?
Yeah, great question. Feels like a softball, so I'm waiting for the harder ones. But I think, listen, the transition's really not about changing lanes. For me, it was more about expanding the road itself. So think of it like a freeway, and you're a 2-lane road. You get a lot more traffic. You want an 8-lane road. As serving as a CISO, I was already embedded in things like enterprise technology decisions, risk assessments, regulatory alignment, and so much more. Moving into this new role as CIO, it sort of gave me the platform to lead things like end-to-end transformation, not just simply protect it. I feel like my security background and those like me throughout the industry, it keeps risk in the frontal lobe and center of all innovative decisions for companies. I don't just view this transition as a security type of gatekeeper or compliance professional. It's a strategic enabler that propels companies to transform their innovative ideas faster because the security gateways are implemented by design.
So let me double click on that. What mind shift necessary sort of when we're moving from managing security to leading overall IT and innovation, most importantly, and then obviously the accelerated the tech world we are living in. So just curious, what was that mind shift sort of, if there was any, right?
Yeah, well, I think there's always a couple. I kind of operate in rules of three for your audience. So if you're looking at things later, you'll realize I kind of talk in small chunks. I think there was 3 core shifts required to be successful. The first was from control to empowerment. Security emphasizes boundaries. The overall tech leadership requires creating freedom within that structure. So that was critical for me. And then the second part was moving from defensive to proactive kind of thinking. In this new capacity as CIO, I'm responsible for driving growth, not just avoiding things like loss. And then lastly, I think about risk avoidance and shifting from avoidance to risk optimization. See, the goal is no longer zero risk. It's calculated risk in service of the overall business value. So I really went from a protective kind of environment into a growth kind of mindset. But I never really leave the security sort of realm, because in the growth or the revenue generating mindset for the business, I always want to make sure that we have security by design.
Okay, so help me understand. So I like that. So defensive to the proactiveness. Indulge there a little bit. So I know from the CISO, if I'm understanding correctly, it's always securing, safeguarding, but proactive. Is it like seeking ideas, or I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on defensive versus the proactive?
Yeah, in proactive, you want to continue to build. So thing like think like, hey, I want to create, I want to utilize AI to create robot, identification or robot agents or something. Somehow we're going to have to connect that in a traditional sense, in a reactive shift or compliance related shift. We might say, here's all the risks of that thinking. Instead, we say, hey, let's build security into that transformation. So now we're being much more proactive to get the end result or the product out the door, because we've already had the debates in the ideation stage around what kind of security controls, what kind of measures need to be in place to ensure that the data is protected as we shift from wherever we were to wherever we're going.
So is it okay to like basically security by default, right? Just anyone
Absolutely.
got it. It's not
Security
an
by design,
afterthought.
by default.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So on the same note, as a CIO now, how are you seeing AI reshape not just security, but the core business operations across the enterprise? I know you have been the first one, one of the security leaders who embraced AI within your security operations. But I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts now as a CIO, to your point, looking at the holistic view, how the business operations like the enterprise, the core, AI is reshaping those operations.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think AI is becoming the almost connected tissue between fragmented systems. If you think about it from a security standpoint, accelerating things like threat detection, analysis, triage, things like that. In overall operations, it's automating manual workflows. It's augmenting decision making, and it's personalizing user experiences in an exponential way. The biggest shift, really, is the redefinition of the scale itself. You see, AI allows us to do exponentially more without linear increases in things like your basic costs or headcount.
Yeah, no, that's do more with less is absolutely, we are seeing like a lot of mantra. But so
I
let's
think
I go ahead.
a little bit more there. I think it's do more with more. You have more on your palette so that you can deliver more. It's not just the traditional, hey, I'm going to bring in more AI, thus that equals reduction in headcount specifically. I think it challenges our leaders to think differently and upskill themselves into the place of where we're going instead of where we've always been. The argument of this is how we've gotten here or this is how we've always done it, that's what's exponentially disappearing. Because if you do something, at least in my philosophy, if you do the same thing every single day and you have more than 4 touch points, you should be using a robot to do that. Robot being AI for your audience, right? And I know we're going to get a lot of comments. AI doesn't equal robots. That's just the way
Yeah.
Billy talks. So I
Yeah.
understand that. But if you're doing something all the time and it's operational, AI should be doing that for you. And you should be using your humans to solve harder or more strategic challenges. And your humans can look at the AI and say, hey, this is what we meant, or we want to shift, or that idea when it comes off of the software conveyor belt, it's kind of cool, but could we do dot dot dot? AI is doing that for you now. So you can put in less manual labor, get a bigger impact for you and your company, and you can redefine the scale of what's possible where you couldn't do that before. You'd have to go out and get tons and tons of labor, tons of ideation. You'd have all these Kaizen models and whatnot to kind of have different kind of thinkers in the room to tell you what's possible. Instead, we're back in the place where we say, hey, is it BlackBerry time or iPhone time? That's what we're doing now. This is George Jetsons, folks. We have flying cars and food coming out of microwaves that have no water on them, whatever. The idea is anything's possible. And I think that's really cool.
I like that. I like that a lot, Billy. So I think what you brought up is very important. How have you just if you don't mind giving an example, how have you sort of repurposed some of the workflows where some, what are being tackled now with AI?
Sure. We're in our team, we're thinking about it's really a 3-stage thing. The first part is simplification. So how can we use AI to consolidate and simplify day-to-day things, right? And that comes in a lot of things. So how can we simplify things like how we work to reduce friction and accelerate results? Think about all the places where you get friction in your day-to-day life. How can we remove that but still accelerating an outcome? Many initiatives underway in this pillar lead to things like cost or avoidance as a direct result. The other thing we're doing is we're amplifying our internal impact to become sort of our own best customer at Teradata. Hey, we want to lead by example and advocate for smarter, faster, and more effective solutions. And we feel like if we're utilizing our own products and services, we can be our own best customer to other folks to say, here's what we've learned, and here's how we're utilizing our capacity to sort of shift greater results, not just in our company, but with how we work, the way we work, achieving better data insights, and so forth. And then lastly, we want to strengthen our security posture while enabling speed, agility, and innovation. That's super, super important to us because the idea is we can't, just because it's new technology and just because our landscape just got exponentially larger, we can't forget about things like security. Security has to be by design, has to be by default, and it has to be second nature. So there's no negotiation with security here at Teradata.
I appreciate that simplification, cost avoidance, and obviously security. How do you that's fantastic, and actually a great segue to my next question. Global company, Teradata, Fortune 500 customers. In recent years, I have seen your, kind of accelerated developments you guys cycles you have gone through to innovate your product. What I'm also seeing with other customers is while the excitement is there, and I go back, there is a lot of apprehensions too. So I would like to hear your thoughts, how you guys have embraced and most importantly, adopted internally and, got it to your customers, the AI, the next gen solutions in the hands of the customer. So help me understand what's sort of the approach there to balance, the innovation which you're mentioning. And then most importantly, there is the risk to it as well. So just would love to hear your thoughts.
I think the first part of that is you got to get excited, folks. A lot of times I walk into a room and people suggest that, AI is going to somehow take us backwards. It's going to deplete the amount of intellectual capacity that we have across our engineering tables and whatnot. I think that's false. We need to embrace change. We need to embrace what's coming next, and we need to embrace technology to move our businesses, but also in a larger sort of footprint, society forward. And I think the way that we do it, and we sort of manage innovation and risk while thinking about scale, is we have to think about what are your non-negotiables inside of your company. Everybody has some level of privacy that you got to meet, whether it's local or global or whatnot. We have to think about data. We have to think about the integrity of what we're doing. So if you start putting all of your most sensitive things into models and the models are connected to the internet and those aren't safely being deployed, then you might have some leakage, and that's a challenge. You also have to think about your business and establishing like data explainability, what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because if your customers don't buy in and support that, approach, then that could also hurt your business. I think you have to implement gated innovation. Now, this starts getting into the broader tech side of it, right? You have to start in controlled environments before expanding into broader deployment, especially when you start talking about your production related environments. Experiment in places that are safe. You don't have to go from zero to production without thinking about all the risks and working with the right people in your company so that people can understand risks. In my experience, the folks that don't understand risks, that's where the fear comes from. And every time there's fear, it sort of leaks into uncertainty, and that becomes the doubt, and doubt becomes the impediment to innovation. So we need to be really careful. My advice there is to create cross functional governance structures, whether it be risk, legal, IT, or other business key stakeholders. They must co own your outcomes. You cannot do this in a vacuum. I know we all get excited. We all have hopes and dreams and concepts, and we all have a belief that what we're doing is going to be better than where we started, but you must have a consensus model in order to actually move the needle successfully. And then lastly, operationalize things like red teaming and model monitoring. You have to assume there's going to be drift. You have to assume there's going to be bias. And you have to assume that at some point exploitation will happen. So design whatever you're doing for that resiliency model. It doesn't mean you have to say this. It doesn't mean that I'm perceiving that you must say the sky is falling, but you must design for when bad things happen so you can get up and running and that you're not beholden to whatever the bad thing is that's happening, resulting in the drawdown of your business.
Love it. That's fantastic. You know, I was not planning to because I think it's still sort of, I won't call it a controversial question, but hey, what it came to my mind, I'm going to ask you anyways, right? So, 2 years again, and I keep quoting since the very first, the large language model was out on the market, enterprises started testing. How are you in your role, sort of still as you're making these investments? Because again, having conversation with other leaders, the ROI is still kind of a question mark in a lot of cases. So how are you mostly interested in quantitative when you are sort of embracing and putting into your workflows? Or have you also accounted for qualitative sort of ROI, right? Where it could be soft dollars. I think you mentioned earlier productivity of your team members. So just curious, what approach have you taken when you are in the, in the boardroom with your board members and they're asking, but hey, where is the return on this investment? So I would love to hear your thoughts. And I'm sure many of our, listeners, they would love to hear that as well.
Yeah, it's a loaded question. I love it. But when I think about it, I, I've not really treated AI to me is not really a trend to chase, but a strategic capability to operationalize. And I think it's important to repeat kind of what I said in the last question. In order to operationalize, you must be secure, you must be ethical, and you must be able to measure, which kind of leads probably into where I'm going to go. I think ROI has to be quantitative, like for sure. But before we get there, I'd like to go back. I think there's an approach, right? So your initial approach has to evaluate things like foundational LLM integrity, data privacy risk, policy frameworks. If you start talking about 2 years ago, everybody was talking about one model versus today. I think other models have risen to the top for different needs. So depending on the kind of business you are, you're going to want to enrich those models. You're going to want to think about costs. How much tokens? What's the cost for in versus out? Those kinds of things. So you go from an initial phase into a mid-tier kind of focus. This is where you're kind of piloting some use cases across, maybe like IT service automation, threat intelligence enrichment, employee experience, some of your financial models, those kinds of things. And then I think where we are today is we're embedding AI into things like enterprise workflows, right? These are dedicated governance around security, compliance, model monitoring. Most importantly, you're getting that value. So then you flip over back into that ROI where I said quantitative is what I think. I think cost efficiency. So the first part is from a CIO perspective is how do I reduce ticket resolution time? How do I drive the efficacy around SOC triage acceleration? And then how do I improve DevOps automation all through utilizing AI? So the theme there is there's a lot of operations tasks. If you just in your mind visually, all your audience, you close your eyes and you say, listen, we have a 4-tiered approach. Tier 1 and 2 should be automated with AI. Tier 3 and 4 should be your more advanced engineers and architects trying to redesign the themes of the findings that are coming to the surface. Then you have to say, okay, now we have some costs that we're considering. What's our time to value? How do we speed up delivery cycles? How do we improve customer responsiveness? And most importantly, how do we lower that human capital dependency for those tier 1 and tier 2 operational tasks? And then lastly, because this is near and dear to my heart, how do we think about risk reduction? If we're using machines to operationalize machine type tasks now, we should have fewer manual fewer manual errors because humans aren't involved. We should have a stronger incident response precision, meaning again, there's touch points not being lost, and the anomaly detection should move to be a lot quicker. This is insecurity. This is networks. This is all around your business. So I think it's really important to track things like employee enablement and cultural alignment. So on the employee side, I think about frictionless self-service, AI co-pilots, knowledge discovery, and on the cultural side, I think empowering teams to innovate securely and responsibly. Hopefully that answered your question.
No, it absolutely makes sense. So let me on again, how we talked about the value. Are there any AI trends you feel are more hype than substance right now? Like within, I'm sure that you're testing, your teams are testing, and validating a lot of things. So anything which comes out, that's more of a hype than substance for me. So just curious to hear your thoughts because there's a lot
I
out there.
There's a lot, right? So again, this is Billy's opinion, right? And Billy's only. I think autonomous AI agents in enterprise settings, this right now is it's a myth. It's a nice to have. It's where we want to go. But quite honestly, in my perspective, we're just not there yet in terms of reliability and governance. Could we be in the future? Maybe. But today we're just not there. AI powered leadership coaching tools. While these are insightful and there's a lot of demos, there's really there's little sustained value at the executive level because there's so much human influence that kind of circles the deck. So if you're getting the, hey, come click on me and pay $29.99 for coaching, and next thing you know, you're going to be the CEO, might be interesting things that you learn, but probably not a way to grow your career. And then I think what's interesting is that we have a lot of these one-click AI compliance tools that are out there right now. So it'll be like, hey, I'm the whatever solution, and I'm going to solve world's hunger with one click, no problem. I think these tools oversimplify very complex regulatory responsibilities. So very high risk, very low trust right now. Doesn't mean we're not moving into that area, and it doesn't mean I wouldn't want to debate some of these folks on a grander stage. But I do think they solve just a unique niche, and they're really not encompassing the broader landscape that CIOs and CTOs need to consume.
It's funny that how you're queuing me up, I think, is something very material and very important, which you mentioned, the compliance, the data governance, AI being powered by data, right? So I'm I would like for you to continue. Like, how are you thinking, right? Because you got this, as I said, a global company, massive operations, and I'm sure that you guys are accelerating, efforts, getting things in hands of people internally and externally. So how are you rethinking sort of the data architecture and most importantly, governance, right? The access governance to ensure both security and usability, right? So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for asking. These are tough questions. I think everybody's thinking about. Every time I walk into a room, I get a similar question, or I'm fortunate enough to be involved in these kinds of debates. From my perspective, the industry has shifted from siloed data lakes to unified policy-driven data fabrics. It's really important for folks to think about how to embed metadata-driven access controls at the source layer, how to enable things like AI-friendly formats without compromising lineage or classification. We have to think about automating data governance through ML-based discovery and tagging. We used to do this pretty consistently, but as the data ecosystem continues to evolve, these base kind of layer of controls have to evolve with it. And then I think it's important to go back to my foundation of applying zero trust principles to the data flows, not just the users anymore. We used to say we spend a tremendous amount of money securing the users, but we forget about the machines. Now we have to extend that into the data as it flows, regardless of the user or the machine or the app or the systems. And I think it's just much more comprehensive, but also really, really cool if you think about it.
Enterprises, organizations who had not initially thought of that how data will become sort of the currency. So I'm just curious, enterprises who didn't or who don't have that sort of unified, centralized, clean data and sort of struggling, what would be your recommendations to, customers, enterprises, folks like, who are really struggling to figure out how to get better handle on data? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think when you start thinking about data, I think having accountability models are important. Think about a RACI model for things like data quality, access, lineage, those kinds of things. You got to have a baseline inventory, right? You have to know how to qualify your data. We used to call it classification, but qualify the priority and value of your data, and then be able to get really into the basic to map those data assets. So if you don't have teams conducting data discovery or classification exercise across your systems, and that's both your structured and unstructured data, then you're really at a miss, especially in today's world utilizing AI. And then I think it's really important in some, I don't know, some rhythm to remove what we used to call your rot data. And for the audience, I know I'm throwing up acronyms like we're in a Star Wars movie, so I apologize. This is your redundant, obsolete, or trivial data. Otherwise, you're literally just a data hoarder. You just have more stuff, and volume is how you're being charged these days. So while your vendors might go more volume, yeah, you might say more volume. This is really expensive. So I think it's important to build a data catalog so that you have lineage, ownership, sensitivity labels, usage metrics. That's critical. Then you got to invest in a foundational data architecture. Design logical data fabric or data mesh to unify access across silos, even if physical consolidation is not immediately feasible. Adopt meta-driven principles to improve transparency and auditability. Uh, I don't know, align your architecture with zero trust principles again for data access. Prioritize things like data quality and hygiene. You can even assign like KPIs to your business outcomes, right? Your clean customer data drives upsell success down the line or something. You can enable controlled self-service and federated models. I think it's cool to empower the folks around you by creating some guardrails for decentralized teams to manage this data responsibility. You can have self-service secured platforms for things like analytics. Listen, folks, you don't need to go to your data analytics team with AI. You need to know how to build a basic workflow to accumulate enough information so that you can create those analytics. That's awesome. Or shameless plug, come talk to us at Teradata. We'll show you how it's done. It's really cool. You can also balance that agility with centralized data trust policies and common taxonomies. I can just keep riffing here. We have security and data privacy requirements. We have roadmaps with milestones. And then I think most importantly, though, it's your cultural alignment around data as a product. Here's something that I think is really important to Billy as a human. Every piece of data, I don't care where it comes from, every piece of data is a part of a larger story. If you believe anywhere you're at home, listening, in your car, on an airplane, or wherever you are, if you believe that's true, you have got to train your business users to think in terms of data domains and data products. Incentivize your teams to contribute to clean data and put it back into your ecosystem, because quality in equals quality out. And then lastly, help me help you reinforce the message. Data is not just an asset. It's an enterprise responsibility for everyone. So that's just a little bit. I probably could talk the rest of your podcast for this, Karan, but I'll throw
I
that
know
to you.
I know that subject is very near and dear to you, and that's why I asked a question. So, I do want to kind of get a validation from you. Last few years in the data AI domain, what I have realized is that an organization who's really trying to, again, as like get a good handle and make data an asset, it is a very cross-functional initiative. So would you agree? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't. Of course, I think where you're at, my first thought says this: it's not just an IT deliverable for companies. Success depends on things like ownership, collaboration, embedding governance across all stakeholders. I think first of all, it has to be a core principle. Data is just not a byproduct of operations. It is the product itself. Like financial capital, it must be governed, protected, enriched, monetized through a coordinated approach. So for me, yeah, I think you should have things like unified ownership, frameworks to operationalize, cross-flow workflow integrations, but most importantly, enablement tools and approaches to enrich that data and get a broader understanding out of it. Catalogs, policy as code, build glossaries. Knowledge bases are going to become your best friend with AI. So if you don't have your technical writers or folks starting to really document those knowledge bases, you're in big trouble as an enterprise. And then lastly, the data quality monitoring. I can't say it enough. You really have to have observability platforms in place or ideas around how to really clean up your data, because the organizational shift is moving. It's moving from a data reporting philosophy to a product thinking philosophy. And so that equals, if the data has friction, your business will have friction. So you need those KPIs that reflect the business objectives you're trying to get out of the data in your company.
Thanks, Billy. Given your experience, deep experience in cybersecurity. Do you see sort of AI changing the threat landscape? And are we entering into sort of a new kind of cybersecurity? Would love to hear your thoughts on that. And what will be recommendations for businesses as we tap into AI, data, everything else? What will be your recommendations?
Yeah, I think it's about velocity. It's just like anything else. The easier it becomes to use and consume, the more output is going to be created. Key shifts for me is if you think about from first an offensive mindset. So offensive AI, you're seeing things like more convincing AI. You're seeing deeper impersonations. You're seeing automated exploit discovery. You're seeing, AI created videos that are truly convincing. Your favorite actor, your favorite voice, your favorite impression. That's a very very easy thing to implement right now. So then, if you think about offense, how do I get you to pay attention and maybe take an action? Think about defense. What's the equal and opposite reaction to that? Faster correlation, behavior modeling, anomaly detection, because we have to validate if what we're seeing and what we're feeling and what we're working through is legitimate. So we have to be concerned with things like data poisoning, model manipulation. These are the new frontiers for adversaries. It's no longer just a tool set evaluation. So it goes back to that concept where you're going to run into whoever you run into at Black Hat and RSA and some of these big conferences, and they're going to say, I have a solution for you. And my challenge to all of you is I believe it's an ideological race. It's around trust, control, and truth. How do you get through the first few layers to solve for those variables? And if you do, how do you spread the word with the rest of the community so that we can adopt the very same principles that you're solving for?
Looking ahead, right, 3-5 years, what's your vision for the sort of CIO's role in a data and AI driven enterprise?
Yeah, this is the good one for me. I think the CIO is becoming things like the chief integration and trust officer for companies. It's not just managing systems, but stewarding how intelligence flows securely and responsible across the enterprise. The role is going to shift from running infrastructure to orchestrating human and machine collaboration at scale. We have to get in front of that. It's a data race. So all the things that you have is going to shift from on-prem to the cloud into data across all ecosystems. And now you're managing that fluidity in and out to drive value into your companies or your customers or your shareholders alike.
Man, that's a good one, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will appreciate that. So, Billy, I have to ask this one: if you had to summarize sort of your leadership philosophy in one sentence, what would it be?
Man, I think lead with boldness, empathy, and discipline. Remember to nurture trust, empowering others through knowledge, and driving forward with purpose and integrity. For me, being kind is the framework that everyone should follow.
I love it. Couldn't have asked for a better close. Billy, it is always a pleasure talking to you. And thank you so very much for taking the time and having a conversation today. Listeners, that was Billy Spears, a CIO at Teradata. Billy, again, thank you so much and hope to continue our conversations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.